Can't get this. I can't get any.
Okay, it is 2 o'clock and I will call the public meeting. West Grade public meeting for the municipality for a planning component. We have a number of, I think, 4 applications today to deal with. And so I will, first thing I'll do is ask, is there any declaration of pecuniary interest from any of the members? Seeing none, if it does arise, it can be declared at any time. So I'll declare the first public meeting for the proposed draft plan of subdivision 42T-2023-02, the zoning amendment ZA 26-2023 for the Rosette subdivision. Please bear with me as I have a fair bit of verbiage that I've got to read out for every one of these. I can't say just ditto for the next one. But first I'm going to ask Sheila whether we have anybody online or how they can participate online, as we do have 2 streams going here today. Sheila?
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Before I begin, if you get disconnected, you can dial 1-647-558-0588 and enter meeting ID 891-5626-2480. It should be noted for members of the public that this meeting is being held in 2 locations, on Zoom as well as being live streamed on YouTube. Both members of staff and council have been briefed on the various features of the Zoom meeting software. Members of council and staff will be raising their hands to speak. For members of the public, if you require any technical assistance at any point during this meeting, you can send a chat message to me, Sheila Ferguson, Communications Coordinator, and I will attempt to assist you.
Thank you, Sheila. For my announcements, I would like to remind everyone that the purpose of this public meeting is to receive input from the public. Every person who attends a statutory public meeting required under the Planning Act shall be given an opportunity to make representation in respect to the proposed bylaw. All submission materials for this application are available at the West Grade Municipal Office during regular business hours. If a person or a public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the municipality of West Grade to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grade before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grade before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, Jamie has some notices to make.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Notice of this public meeting was circulated to the prescribed bodies, posted on the subject property, and mailed to all properties within 120 meters of the subject property on August 3rd, 2023. The comments that were received before the publishing of the agenda have been attached to the agenda. Anyone wishing to provide verbal comments at this public meeting is asked to sign the sign-in sheet located on the speaker's table. The personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and the Municipal Act. The information collected will be used to complete the zoning bylaw amendment process and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to me, the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Grey and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the Municipality of West Grey, care of the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk.
Thank you, Jamie. We have the application in front of us, and I'll ask Brittany if she has any comments from the planning department. Or sorry, Brittany. Thinking of my Becky. I got it started right with the B. Yeah, sorry, Becky. Go ahead. Ms. Hillier?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Becky Hillier. I am a planner with Grey County. This is my first time at the West Grey Municipal Office today, so it's great to be here. Great to see a good turnout today. Hoping to have a good discussion. So I'm hoping that my colleague Carl from West Grey will be joining us shortly, but for the moment I can provide a bit of a planning overview of two applications that the county and the municipality have received. The first one is a draft plan of subdivision. We refer to it as 42T-2023-02 and a zoning bylaw amendment, which is ZA 26.2023. And both of these pertain to the development of a new subdivision referred to as the Roseate subdivision. And those lands are located, if you just look outside, not just across the street there, just south of Grey Road 4. So I can go to the next slide. So just to provide a little bit of the background on this file to date, the application has been submitted by Oak and Stone Development, Inc. Through Georgian Planning Solutions. Kristen Rennie has been acting as the agent on this file. She's here. I believe she'll be speaking as well to this application. The property is 15.7 hectares in size, which is probably approximately 40-ish acres. And it has an irregular shape, so it's not rectangular, it's kind of a bit of a flag shape. It is designated primary settlement area, rural and hazard lands in Schedule A of the county's official plan. And there are some significant valley lands and woodlands adjacent to the property. And I can go in a little bit more detail about what that actually means shortly here. It's designated residential in the West Grey official plan, and the application would look to create 150 new residential units. And of those, 90 approximately would be townhouses, and there's a sort of an approximately 60 unit apartment building. And from the apartment building, neighborhood commercial uses are proposed on the ground floor. There would also be a public park area towards the southern portion of the property, stormwater management facilities, and 3 new public roads with sidewalks. And so just for a little bit of background information, Grey County would be the decision-making authority for the subdivision portion, and West Grey would be the decision-making authority for the zoning application. And I just wanted to point out that, and just as the clerk had mentioned, that no decisions will be made today. We're really just here to hear some of your thoughts and feedback about these proposals that will be considered as we move through to making recommendations on this application. So here is an aerial photo of the subject land. So as you can see again, it is an irregular shape. At the moment, the majority of the property is fairly clear. There's not a lot of trees. There are some wetlands in the northwest corner of the property. It's a bit wet there. Towards the south, where it kind of flags onto, I think it's at College Street North. There are some environmental features that we'd be looking to protect. That's also the area where the public park area is proposed. You can kind of see it's a bit tricky to see, but there is a historic railway corridor that goes through that property, which is a bit of a raised topography element. But yes, as you can see, there's access onto Gray Road 4 from the north, and then a small frontage onto College Street North to the east. So this is what the proposed concept plan looks like currently. So the yellow blocks that you're seeing are, those would constitute the townhouse buildings that are proposed, or lots, I should say. So there would be 90 townhouses in 12 different blocks. And then the orange block to the northeast corner would be the apartment block with the commercial, the ground floor commercial use. The green area to the bottom of the site would be the public park area. And there's a very small sort of trapezoid area in red stripes. And that has been identified within the environmental impact study as kind of a no development area, just because of sensitive ecological features there. That portion, the bluey purple portion on the west side, the blue area shows the extent of the floodplain area based on the studies that have been done on this property. And the purple area in the middle would be the stormwater management facility that is proposed to kind of be the area where any excess flows from the development would kind of end up. So as I said at the beginning, this property is designated primary settlement area, rural and hazard lands in the county's official plan. So to put that not in quite planner speak, the red area is what we refer to as the primary settlement area. That is a portion of the town of Durham. And those are areas that we see as having a good potential for growth and development. So those are areas where there's access to full municipal services. So we see this property as being fully serviced by municipal sewer and water facilities. And we see the reason that we kind of contain that growth to certain areas is because we want to avoid sprawling into our farmlands, into our environmental features that we often see in our rural areas in our countrysides. So I just want to point out that all of the concept plan that we saw on the previous page, all of those buildings, the townhouses, the apartment, would be contained within that red area that you see there. But only the stormwater management pond would be in the rural area, the white area to the west side. One thing I don't have a map of here, unfortunately, is the West Gray official plan. So I just wanted to point out that one important element of this is that within the West Gray official plan, it is designated already as residential for this area. And so what that means is that both the county official plan and the West Gray official plan have identified that this is an appropriate area for growth and development. And West Gray has taken that further by saying, we want to see residential uses here. And so that's really what this development is speaking to. And I think it brings that land use to this property. And so we haven't seen the need thus far for any sort of amendment to the county or West Gray official plan. But there is a zoning amendment that would be applicable to the property. So the current zoning is restricted rural, which is A3 in the West Gray zoning bylaw, and future development. And what we're proposing is for most of the property to be rezoned to residential 3, which would permit the townhouse uses. And a small portion would be mixed use to permit the apartment, as well as that ground floor commercial use. And I must apologize for those who received an earlier version of the presentation, that there may have been a slight difference on this slide. The original had missed putting in that mixed use portion for the apartments, but this one is the correct version, and hopefully that can be circulated later. So yes, so essentially we would be looking for a zoning amendment to allow these uses to be present on this property, but no changes would be required to the county or the West Grey official plans. So this is what the property currently looks like. It's just a couple of snapshots. The first one on the left is from the back of the property looking out towards Grey Road 4. So we can see it's a relatively flat sort of grassy meadow property. There's not a lot of terrain differences for the most part. There's not a lot of trees. On the picture on the right is more from the street looking towards the back. So there is some row of trees towards the back of the property, but that portion is not proposed to be developed. Next one. These are some of the surrounding land uses adjacent to the property. So to the east, we have some existing residential uses. Along Grey Road 4 to the bottom left there, you can see that this is right at the outskirts of Durham. So it's kind of that boundary right between the urban area and the rural area. And the bottom right there is obviously the local hospital institutional use. So when we're making decisions in terms of the Planning Act, there's a number of different higher level kind of policy provisions that we need to consider. And as most of us are aware of in one way or another, one of the key things that we're focusing on at all levels, municipally, provincially, federally, is really how do we solve the housing crisis? And this is an interesting development because it is proposing those apartment uses, those townhouse uses, which we see as kind of that missing middle housing that provides for a wider range of income opportunities, and to provide that kind of local, those starting houses, potentially those retirement houses, those young people types of homes. So in that respect, I think we're pleased to see that those are on offer through this development. There's of course a number of studies that have been submitted, and so we will be doing a fulsome review of those other aspects as well. Because the West Grey and the county are working together, there's a lot of coordination that needs to happen between the county and West Grey and the other agencies that we work with. We want to make sure that we've considered all the safety elements of the development of the land, and so those are all aspects that will be considered in our review here as we move forward in looking at this proposal. Yeah, so as I mentioned, there's a number of studies that have been done in support of this, these two applications. A planning justification report has been prepared. A traffic impact study has been prepared to look to see if there's any upgrades that would be required to the county road or the connecting municipal roads. An archaeological assessment has been done. A stormwater management report has been undertaken. An environmental impact study, a geotechnical report to make sure that the soil is stable and can support a subdivision. Functional servicing report has been done, and various hazard studies and then floodplain analysis have been done to make sure that the stormwater management system will be up to scratch and won't cause any additional impact on the hazard lands. And so just to give everyone a bit of a sense of what the next steps would be for our review and processing purposes, So staff are currently undertaking a detailed review of all of the submitted material at this time. It's my understanding that Carl has been sending a few of the engineering studies out for peer review. The county has recently undertaken the role of ecology review. And so we have 2 new planning staff who are reviewing the EIS currently. The Conservation Authority has reviewed a number of the studies. And so, and we've received a couple of comments as well from members of the public and local utility companies. And so along with your comments here today, the next steps will be to go through all those comments and to begin to process them and to go through them and to create a document where both planning staff and the applicants and developers will be able to respond to those questions and to see if we're, you know, on the same page with how we can move forward or not with this application. Additional work or revision may be required to some of the studies submitted to date. But essentially, once and if all major comments are addressed, West Grey staff will bring forward a staff report and recommendation to council regarding the subdivision and zoning. And after that, generally the county staff would bring forward a staff report and recommendation to county council regarding the subdivision application. And so, yes, that's all I have for you at this point, but yeah, open to any comments or feedback. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Becky. And at this time, before we get to that portion, I believe the applicant has
Oh, there you are.
somebody that wants to present on their part.
Here we go. I do have a presentation, and I want to say thank you to Becky for pretty much doing my job. And so it's going to make me look really good. So thank you, Becky. Mayor Eccles and council, general public and staff. My name is Kristen Rennie. I'm from Georgian Planning Solutions, and I'm the agent acting on behalf of the property owner, which is Oak and Stone Development. And I do want to send regrets from the owner, Ritesh Malik. He has been summoned for selection for jury duty and he could not get out of it. It didn't work. He tried. Okay, so next slide, please. As mentioned by Becky, the purpose of the public meeting today is to consider a zoning bylaw amendment in order to implement a proposed draft plan of subdivision. Next slide, please. We all now know where the property is located, so we'll just skip past this one. I just want to add a couple of things. Becky did give a little bit of an overview of the proposal and the site. And I just wanted to add a few things related to it, a little bit more detail. So we've got the townhouse blocks, 90 units within the yellow blocks shown on the concept plan. We also have that future development block, that's what we're calling it. It's in orange at the top. And so Becky did talk about it for potentially a 3 to 4 story apartment building with the commercial use on the bottom. We're also it potentially allows for townhouses as well. That's sort of like the next phase of the first phase. So a lot of that detail will sort of pan out through the site plan approval process. So just wanted to make you aware of that. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the parkland dedication area or the parkland amenity area. So it's 2.13 acres, which is 11.7% of the subject lands, which is fairly large for a public park area. The location of the park also provides access for the residents in the proposed subdivision, but also for existing residents in the area. So it would be a public park that could be accessible to anyone in Durham, really. The property is accessed from the site from Durham Road West and Chester Street with a future connection to the west, which would be the phase 2 lands that are on that plan, which potentially could be developed in the future. So we're allowing it to have connectivity within that development to that future land. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, and Becky had alluded to it, the area in blue and purple. So that is a floodplain area as well as a proposed area for stormwater management. which would actually take the water from this proposal as well as the proposal that we will be talking about later across the street into more of a sort of regional stormwater management facility, which sometimes is easier to maintain if you don't have a whole bunch of little stormwater management ponds. Next slide, please. So in order to implement the proposed draft plan of subdivision, as Becky alluded to, we need a zoning bylaw amendment. So the yellow area is R3, which would take into consideration the townhouses that we're proposing. And then the red area, which would be a mixed use zone, MU1, would permit apartments with commercial uses, typically community commercial uses, which is a better fit in this type of area, as well as townhouses. And Becky did talk about the parkland area and that environmental blub that's there. I guess it's the bright yellow block at the bottom. And that's a sensitive environmental buffer area that was identified through our environmental work that we did on the property. Next slide, which I don't even have to talk to because Becky did that as well, about the technical reports that we did in support of that application. And they're being peer reviewed and we're waiting for comments so that we can move forward with the project. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Kristen. And at this point in time, I can open it up. If there are, I'm going to ask first, Sheila, do we have anybody online with questions? Okay, thank you. And anybody in the public? From the public? If you could use the microphone so that you'll have to turn it on. There's a gray button there, and if you could give your name for the record, please.
It's Brian O'Rourke. I mean, it sounds like a great idea, nice subdivision, houses and that. I'm just wondering what plans there are for light trespass, mitigating light pollution from the new subdivision. As you know, in Grey County, they've proposed some sort of light pollution legislation of some sort. I don't have the details, but I was just wondering whether there's any plans in this subdivision for like lower color temperature, like 3000 K or lower, so that there's not as much blue light, which tends to scatter more, in full cutoff shields on the streetlights, and restriction on the kind of lights on the sides of buildings. As you know, like for instance, at the hockey rink, they've got lights around the side of the building, which just beam out into the gray blue yonder. I've been here for 20 years and I've definitely noticed a degradation in the night sky in that time. It would be nice to stop it so it doesn't keep getting worse.
We will be certainly, I believe, working with the developer and going forward on that to meet the standards that are already set out by the county and environment in the province, and following through on that to try and keep that fine line between community safety and being lit and light pollution, which is in place.
Right. A good example of good light usage is the waterworks, just as you're heading west out of Thornbury on 26. At night, you can see the building, but there aren't any lights that you can see from the highway. It's not blinding you. It's not going up in the sky, but if you were in that building, if you had to work, you clearly could see what you were doing because they had full cutoff shields. And that would be a big step in the right direction if we could have full cutoff shields.
Very good.
Okay, that's really all I had to,
Okay, thank
my
you.
2 cents.
Anyone else? I can see a hand up at the back and then one here. Could approach. Oh, thought maybe he might have, Marion.
Hello, it's Marion Ratcliffe for the record. I did send in 2 comments regarding light pollution aspects of this project. And I hope they've been received and spread around. And I did send in a correction this morning. I realized under streetlights, I said full or sharp. shielding, and I should have said sharp cutoff fixtures so that you only get 1% in that glare range rather than the full, which allows up to 10%. So I'd like to see it down to the 1% for glare. So we've got that. By the way, I drove through Newmarket, and they've got a really interesting, they're shielding it kind of like a skirt that comes down. Like ours are just like a rectangle, boom. Theirs actually have almost like a skirt that comes down. I didn't get a chance to see it at night, but certainly just driving by in the daytime, it looked like it probably did a lot more towards reducing glare and light trespass. If you're going to look at the Sunvale project as an example, I would suggest that that be examined very critically. There are some good points. They did use the 3000 K lighting. However, I would make the note that Cree Lighting does also offer 2700 K, and they are using 2700 K up on the peninsula, and the International Dark Sky Association is moving towards 2700 K being probably in the future what will be the approved lighting rather than the 3000. Look at the brightness and glare in the Sunvale project. There's one spot, if you stand, there's one light fixture that's out. And if you stand around that fixture with the other two off to the side, there's plenty of light. You can see yourself, you can see the road, you can see the lawn, you can see if anybody's hiding behind the shrub, you know, there's plenty of light. So do we really need that number of standards? In fact, there's one corner in that Sunvale project, they're on the corner, there are 2 light standards that can't be more than 10 meters apart. Why are there 2 when there could be 1? You know, just again, reducing that level of light. Question, why is it 5 lux on the road and 10 lux at the intersection? Ask, does it have to be that high? Or are we working with Scarborough, you know, downtown Toronto standards when we're in an urban, or so we're in a rural area? This area here is a lighting zone 0 right now because there's no infrastructure there. And we should be respecting that. One of the points I made in my written thing that I would like to bring forward is that the lighting people, whoever you hire to do that, take a sky quality meter and test the sky above before they put the lights up, and go around the periphery and test the illumination on the ground. And once they've got their lighting plan up, when you step outside of that project, the sky quality above should not be degraded, and the illumination on the ground should be the same. So that basically what we're saying is the light pollution is not trespassing beyond the area. Treat this like it's a rural, natural area, not like it's a downtown urban kind of area. Like keep it to the LZ0, LZ1 range. And the one thing I don't want to hear, and I've heard far too often coming to these meetings, is that the lights have already been purchased and they cannot be changed. Shaking your head? Oh, good. Because I've heard it before, and it's like, no, please, we're still in the public meeting phase. And you've got the 2 little park areas. And if the proponents would consider keeping the light down in that area and actually maybe making them an option as an urban star park, they can look on the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, which gives explanations on what constitutes it. But it's basically a low light area in an urban zone that allows people to go out with their lawn chairs, binoculars, telescopes, whatever, and just observe the stars away from without having to get in their cars and go to Tobermory. I'll now step away from light pollution for once. From that map they had up there, it looked, and I will be corrected, like the stormwater was going into the floodplain, but is it also going into the river, or is it just the floodplain? Is there any way that water is going into the, is that stormwater going into a waterway? Sorry, I should be going through the mayor on this. My apologies. Oh, yeah, you're used
Usually
to,
I'm usually the one that's up the river and knowing which direction the water's going.
yeah,
Marion, I believe naturally that is where the flow always has come. There is a small little stream that does come from the north, crosses through a culvert just out here,
yeah,
goes into this field, meanders its way down through and is
okay.
through there and does end up in the Saugeen River.
Okay,
naturally.
okay, because I'm concerned then about pollutants from these areas ending up going down into that waterway and what aspects, especially considering this morning's topic from the Saugeen Conservation on water testing in our areas. That's kind of prompted me on that. So I hope that there's something being done to,
There will be factors into the engineered in, and I'm looking back at the proponent, that's through some of the studies that will be done for sure that water as it goes into the stormwater management ponds, that is kind of the idea that anything, whether it's sand, silt, you know, there is a separation there and a separating from it that it doesn't get to the river.
okay. Sorry, I've actually got, and last item, where's the garbage going? I've come to a lot of council meetings, and the one thing that crops up all the time is our lack of dump facilities. We're down to what, one, Bentic? So
Yes.
where is the garbage for all of these homes going to go, and what are the developers involved in it, or does West Gray have plans for that garbage?
At this present moment, the way it would be is the same as everybody else that's in West Gray would have that access to it. Is it a concern? Absolutely a concern from, I'm going to say, everybody in Gray County, probably everybody in Ontario. But at this time, you know, there is the capacity, and it would be from a waste management contractor and whatnot for pickup would be the same as what it is. There has been ideas floating out there, and I will say that there is one business in commercial business in Durham that has come up with certainly not an above ground bin, but they're going to be using in-ground bins by a company that an international company that has their headquarters here in Canada, right in West Gray, Moloch, and we'll be using Moloch, which may be a solution. Still, the factor is it's a collection. It's not where it's going to end up. Where it will end up is in our landfills. Yes.
Okay, well, I guess in closing, I'll just say, yeah, please protect our dark skies, protect our environment. Don't trespass light on the homes that are already there. They shouldn't have to put curtains up because of light trespassing in from the project, and leave nature alone. It doesn't want it. It doesn't need it. And in fact, it's not, you know, as I said, save the fireflies, turn off the lights. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. Microphone, you'll need to, yep, that little gray button on that. Now you're under recording.
Okay,
Your name,
I
sir,
have
just for the
two
record.
questions.
Your name, sir? just for
Jim
the record.
Sullivan.
Yes.
The domestic water supply and the sewage. How's that going to tie into this present infrastructure we have, say on College Street heading towards the sewage plant? That's one question I have, is that there. And with this apartment building being that close to our helicopter pad, are we looking for troubles with noise complaints when the helicopter comes in? I imagine that's been looked at, but.
Sorry, on the first one, I'm going to turn to Carl, Director of Infrastructure and CBO. So on the infrastructure, have you got any comments on that, Carl, please?
Yes, thank you, through your worship. They have submitted a plan for their water, sewer, stormwater, all those things. Those things have been peer reviewed. they are looking at, pump or lift station for both, I believe for both this subdivision and the one to the north. I haven't received the comments back yet from the engineer who's peer reviewing the document, but those things are being looked at. And I believe as for your second question, the applicant has been in contact with the hospital and Transport Canada, I believe, in regards to the flight path and the things like that regarding the helicopter.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry. Thank you. Yes, I've met with I've been speaking to Transportation Canada as well as the local person that deals with the helipad in a couple of the Kincardine and here. We've met on site and they have no concerns in terms of the ability of a helicopter to get on that landing pad. And sometimes in relation to noise, we've done this with agriculture as well. And the agreement of purchase and sale, there's a clause that identifies that there's potentially, a helicopter might be landing behind you, and that's the reality of what you're purchasing. So I would imagine that could be something that we could entertain in the agreement when we move forward.
Anything further on the infrastructure from your point?
Through you, Mayor, I am not the engineer, but I do know that they're working hard and there's a coordination between the two projects. The next one that we're going to talk about related to stormwater management and, water and wastewater.
Thank you. Any other questions at this point in time? Sir?
Hi, my name is Ralph DeSanto. We live at 214 DJ and we have a retaining wall that runs down the back of all our properties. I don't know how runoff water, if the building's going to be backing onto the retaining wall, or are they going to be backfilled? Because there's going to be quite a bit of water that runs off our properties onto the neighboring properties. I don't know how they're going to manage that. Thank you.
That's why I'm going to look to staff to see whether Carl has an answer for that. And/or Crystal?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not the engineer, but I do know that I'm aware of that now. And if they haven't already identified it as part of their site work, then it will be taken into consideration in terms of how to deal with that water as it comes onto the property. I'm pretty sure they've already addressed it.
And through our building department, there's setbacks and everything to take that into account. That's why we have setbacks.
Yes, through your worship. Yeah, that's correct. We have setbacks, the zoning requirements, things like that require, and bylaws that, that deal with runoff from neighboring properties, depending on whether it's natural or man-made, different requirements.
Any other questions, comments? Sir.
Brian Lang, 210 DJ Crescent. We were just wondering what the town's going to do to look after us while this construction is going on. It's going to go right by our house. Big problem right now with water drainage. Is that going to be looked after properly? What about construction traffic on Chester? Is it going to be stopped? Are they going to be allowed to run up and down there into a hospital zone? Is the town going to stop all that?
If I'm correct in listening to the presentation from the developer, Chester Street would be the last street to be constructed down past the hospital. The main part would be coming off of Highway 4. Entrance. Maybe you could grab one from Becky. Yeah.
Likely, well, the construction access point will not be through Chester. It would be off of Railroad, County Road 4. It just doesn't make sense to go through a developed area and, you know, rip up the roads. Doesn't make any sense. So that, yeah, that the connection would be the last thing once we're ready to get rolling and selling the units.
There's still the amount of water that runs down there when it's a torrential downpour is unbelievable. You wouldn't see what we put up with for the first 4 years when we moved in there. You know, they put in just a trench as per you guys, okay? And we kept telling them it's no good, it's no good, it's gonna wash my shed away. And then I got my own guy from somewhere, level it all out, grade a little trench down the middle, right from the center of the street. And now it's perfect. Ours still fills up, but not as much as it did before. And we were told 4 years ago something was going to be done about it. And nobody's ever come back and said anything. You know, you just leave us in the dark all the time. I mean, you know how many people's been over to look at the problem over there and nobody's doing nothing about it? You're talking about a survey, but you still got this problem at the street here and it's attached to our property. So what are you going to do to our property? You know, we don't like being kept in the dark. Thank you.
Thank you for making us, myself and council aware of the situation. I can see that our infrastructure manager is taking, our director is taking a look at that right now, and we'll get back to you, Brian. Very good. Thank you. Anybody else? And Jamie, you have one that was a written comment?
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Yes, the comment was submitted from Jennifer Lang, so it may be repetitious too. Right, so Jennifer has noted in there that they would like to see some trees left behind and at retaining wall at Can Do survey, east property line of new survey.
Looking back on that will be part of the being addressed through the subdivision agreement and whatnot. That would be a place where we'll find that. Okay. So if there's no other questions and there's nobody else online, Sheila, thank you very much. I'll declare this public meeting on this one closed at 2:46. Thank you, Jamie. Now, we will start the next one on, this one's for zoning bylaw amendment ZA 21-2023 OP 13. Kayani. Quite simply another subdivision on the north side of Gray Road 4. Sheila, if you can give us the formalities of how somebody can participate if they are there.
Through you, Mayor Eccles, for members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting, you may do so in one of two ways. The first being, if you have joined us via phone line, you can press *9 to raise your hand, and that will let us know that you would like to speak. If you have joined us using the Zoom meeting software, you can also raise your hand to participate, usually located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen with a blue or yellow hand icon.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. And I'm sorry, I didn't say that this meeting is open at 2:47. And my prescribed announcements as chair of the committee. I would like to remind everyone that the purpose of this public meeting is to receive input from the public. Every person who attends a statutory public meeting required under the Planning Act shall be given an opportunity to make representation in respect to the proposed bylaw. All submission materials for this application are available at the West Grey Municipal Office during regular business hours. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the municipality of West Grey to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grey before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed or the official plan amendment is adopted, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grey before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed or the official plan amendment is adopted, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. That's it for my authoritative duties. Mr. Clerk. Jamie?
Thank you, Miracles. Notice of this public meeting was circulated to the prescribed bodies, posted on the subject property, and mailed to all properties within 120 meters of the subject property on August 3rd, 2023. The comments that were received before the publishing of the agenda have been attached to the agenda. Anyone wishing to provide verbal comments at this public meeting is asked to sign the sign-in sheet located on the speaker's table. The personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and the Municipal Act. The information collected will be used to complete the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment processes and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to me, the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Grey and the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the Municipality of West Grey, care of the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk.
Thank you, Jamie. And Becky, you're still with us? Becky, please, if you could. Ms. Hillier.
Thank you so much. Yeah, for anyone who's new tuning in online, my name is Becky Hillier. I am a planner with Grey County. And so the next item is we are discussing three applications actually associated with the development of Kanani subdivision. The first one is a draft plan of subdivision 42T-2023-04. The second is an amendment to the West Grey official plan, OPA 13, and a zoning bylaw amendment, ZA 21.2023. And so I would note just in regards to the development that we just discussed, one additional factor for discussion here is that official plan element. So at the moment, West Grey has designated this property as future development. And so that use hasn't quite been established yet here. So that's just a bit of a subtle planning difference between our discussion on this property versus the previous one. So some background information about this one. The applications were submitted by Kanani Developments Durham Acquisitions Incorporated through Georgian Planning Solutions. So Kristen Rennie here is also the agent on this one, but it is a different developer. The applicant is seeking to develop 132 new residential units, which would include 67 townhouses and 65 single residential houses. There's a small public park and open space area proposed, a stormwater management facility, sort of kind of consolidated water course along the eastern portion of the property, and new public roads and sidewalks. The property is 11.25 hectares in size. It's currently vacant and it's part of a historic lot plan. So there are some existing lots and there's some existing municipal road allowances. And essentially this developer is proposing to consolidate all those road allowances and those existing lots to create a larger portion of developable land. The lands are located on the western boundary of Durham and West Grey, north of Grey Road 4, so just across the road of the previous subdivision we've just discussed. The surrounding land uses include wooded areas to the west, agricultural fields to the north, and residential to the south. That should actually be southeast, I think. In May 2023, as I mentioned, we have received the application just across the road for Roseate subdivision, proposing those 150 units. So the top rectangle in blue there is our subject property. That would be what we're referring to as the Kanani subdivision lands. And the yellow property to the south is the Roseate property. And the reason that we're showing these two at the same time is number one, because we are processing them at the same time. But as Kristen also alluded to, there are some shared elements between these two properties, particularly the stormwater management facility. So the water from the northern property, the Kanani property, a lot of that would be filtered down to the Roseate property and incorporated into that stormwater management system there. And the reason for that is just sort of general efficiency purposes. It's easier to maintain one stormwater management infrastructure pool versus multiple across different properties. So here's the proposed concept plan. So just to orient us towards the right side of the screen, that's Gray Road 4 there. So there would be access taken off of Gray Road 4. All of those yellow blocks that you see are 65 single lots to create single residential houses. And internally, those orange blocks would be the townhouses. So we would have 67 of those, which are proposed. That green little rectangle there is a proposed small public parkette. And then towards the north of the property, where it's just sort of a whitish area, that is proposed to remain as kind of a hazard lands feature that would consolidate the existing water course and wetlands on the property. So here's some images from that property. So if the top left, you can see that there are some existing wetland features on that property. And I believe that portion is proposed to kind of remain as is. On the top right, you can see that there has been some fill historically dumped on this property by previous owners. So you can see that in regards to the driveway there. The bottom left is showing a historic farm pond that would have been a man-made water feature at one point, but the environmental impact study is showing that there's some deterioration of that. So the water is just sort of flowing through, and that's kind of creating the wet terrain on this property. So again, surrounding land uses, we've got the residential, we've got that sort of urban rural divide right at the edge of town there, and we've got the institutional uses across the street. But largely the surrounding properties around this are relatively vacant. We also have the West Gray Municipal Office that borders quite closely to this property. So as I noted, there's 3 Planning Act applications that would be need to be approved in order for this development to move forward. So from the county's perspective, again, that red mapping is showing that it is within what we call the primary settlement area of Durham. So we can consider new development here. But as you'll see, there's a large portion of the property that's green, and that is considered the hazard lands. And our official plan does not permit development within the hazard lands. And so a big component of this application is looking at, are those hazard lands appropriately mapped? Is there the opportunity to modify that mapping based on on-site conditions or additional work that could be done? And in general, is this an appropriate location to be locating the subdivision that is presented today? So that is really part of our review process, is looking quite intricately at a lot of the studies and the work that's been undertaken that will be peer reviewed to determine if this is a good location for this proposal. Within the West Gray's official plan, the plan is reflective of this uncertainty at this point. So it has designated the property as largely future development. And so there is that kind of question with the plan of, is this an appropriate use for this property? We're not anticipating that a county official plan amendment would be required here, but certainly the West Gray official plan would be required. So this is just giving you a breakdown of what's proposed in terms of amending the official plan. So to the left, that is the current mapping. So the brown that you see is what West Gray refers to as future development. And the green is similar to the hazard lands in the county mapping called environmental protection. So that future development is really indicative of a question of whether or not those lands are appropriate for development. And if they are, what type of use makes sense here. And so that's sort of what we're exploring through this application is can we safely make use of those lands? Can we access them through that large hazard feature? Can we safely access them or leave those lands if there was an emergency situation? So those are all questions that are considering. And so what's proposed on the right there, that the yellow space is designated, would be designated as residential. Then there's small areas of open space for those parks, and the remainder would be that environmental protection in green. And so as you can see that the applicants are hoping to modify that environmental protection green area to permit some of those residential uses. So similarly, the zoning map at West Gray really mirrors their official plan. So again, with that uncertainty of, yes, we could maybe consider future development here, but we're not entirely sure what zone makes the most sense. And so that's why you see that future development zone on the left there with the natural environment in green. And what's being proposed again would be in the bright yellow there on the right is the R2 with exception that would permit the single residential houses, and then the R3 in the middle, which would permit the townhouses and the small open space zones for the park. So again, going back to the Planning Act, there's just a number of elements that a planner and council needs to consider when making recommendations or decisions on an application that's put forward. Some of the, in this case, of course, we need that housing element, and we're happy that that is being put forward. But at the same time, there is the element here of do we need to protect these ecological systems, these natural areas, features, and functions? We need to look at the orderly development of safe and healthy communities. So, we want to make sure that the site is safe for the development that's being proposed. So there's a lot of sort of elements that we'll be looking at holistically as we bring this one forward. And again, a number of studies have been undertaken in support of this proposal. Planning justification report has been done, a traffic impact study, archaeological assessment 1 to 3, and I believe stage 4 is now being undertaken because there was some work that was done to uncover I think, at a historic settlement site on the property. There was a stormwater management report, environmental impact study, geotechnical report, and a functional servicing report. And because of the hazard land features, a floodplain analysis and flood hazard study are also being undertaken, and those will be all peer reviewed. Go ahead. So as the next step, again, staff are undertaking a detailed review of the submitted application material. In particular, in this one, we're working quite closely with Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, who does provide a lot of that technical review of the hazard lands element. As we receive all comments, including our peer review comments on the studies that have been done, we're going to be working with the applicants to see, what the feasibility is of addressing those comments. We're anticipating that additional work or revision will probably be required to some of those studies. And again, once all major comments have been addressed, staff, county staff and West Gray staff can move forward in bringing those recommendations to our respective councils for the various applications. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Becky. And overview from our planning. Is there any?
I'm back.
You're back on.
Mr. Mayor, members of council and the audience and staff, Kristen Rennie, I'm the agent acting on behalf of the Kahani Durham Development for this public meeting. Next slide, please. As Becky mentioned, the purpose of the public meeting is for a draft plan of subdivision as well as an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment to implement the proposed draft plan of subdivision. Next slide, please. We already know where it's located. It's just across the way there. I don't think I have anything else to add, but Becky already talked about. So next slide, please. Next slide, she already outlined the number of documents that we did. Okay, so the draft plan of subdivision. So we're seeking planning approval for a mixed-use residential development, townhouse and single detached property. And just wanted to add a couple of things to what Becky had to say. So to start with, there are 67 townhouses and 55 single detached dwelling lots proposed. So each of the units will have like a driveway, front yard area, garage, and backyard amenity space. The single detached are in yellow, the townhouses are in orange on the site. The proposed layout will allow for a range of types of units in terms of size and price points, and will allow for various affordability within the subdivision. Next slide, please. As Becky mentioned, in order to implement the draft plan of subdivision, we need an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment. So Becky did already talk about the existing designation on the property, which in my slide is on the right, and then the proposed official plan amendment. The established developable area that is shown there was a process that we went through with our experts, engineers, and environmental consultants from Azimuth Environmental and Tatham Engineering, who did the technical and environmental and engineer work. So that was the first step that we took to establish that development area before we did any other work on the project, including the concept plan. So I just wanted to let you know that prior to anything sort of coming together in terms of numbers of units, is we established what we thought was an appropriate developable area, and that's the area that's shown in that yellow. Next slide, please. And essentially the zoning bylaw, the zoning bylaw amendment that we're requesting is similar to the outline of the official plan designation, and Becky went through those details as well. Next slide, please. So now this is some details related to the zoning bylaw amendment that I will dive into. So as mentioned earlier in the presentation, the developer is proposing a neighborhood that creates a variety of lot sizes in order to offer a wide range of unit type sizes to accommodate the lot layout and unit types that he's offering. Relief from some of the zoning provisions within the West Gray zoning bylaw 37/2006 is required. This chart shows the amendments requested for the R2 exception zone, where we're requesting a minimum lot area of 347.2 meters squared, minimum lot frontage of 11.2 meters. However, the lots within the development range from 11.2 to 21.9, so it's not all of the lots. A minimum front yard of 6 meters, and a minimum interior side yard of 1.2 meters, a minimum exterior side yard of 5 meters, and a minimum rear yard of 6 meters. That's for the single detached. Next slide, please. This chart shows the residential exception R3 zone, which was for the townhouses. We are requesting a minimum lot area of 195 meters squared, a minimum lot frontage of 6 meters, a minimum front yard of 6 meters, a minimum interior side yard of 1.2 meters, a minimum exterior side yard of 4.5 meters, and a minimum rear yard of 6 meters. Again, the frontages for the townhouses do range between 6 meters and 6.7 meters. The next slide, please. That's essentially the draft plan. Not very exciting, but does have all the measurements on it. I do have, next slide, please. Just some renderings of potential single detached dwellings. And then the next slide. A rendering showing potential townhouse units within the development. And that's all I have to add to Becky's presentation. And if there's any questions, again, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Crystal. First I'll ask Sheila, is anybody online? Another time. Thank you. Any comments from the public that are in attendance? Good, sir? Yep, yep, same as before.
Ralph DeSanto, 214 DJ. Two questions. One, you talked about a pumping station, but I don't see anywhere on the plans there where the pumping station will be put. Secondly, the townhouses that you're putting in the second subdivision, are they going to be comparable to the townhouses going into the first subdivision? Or are they going to be single level or double or multi-level? Thank you.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the pumping station, I'm not sure if Carl can address that. I think Evan Lundquist from Tatham is on the line, if he wanted to answer that.
You there?
Oh.
Adam, are you with us?
Evan.
Hello,
Yeah.
Evan Lundquist from
Oh,
Tatham
sorry.
Engineering.
Yes, go
Everybody
ahead.
hear me? Yeah,
Yep.
so the pumping station for these, we're proposing one lift station. It would be in the Rosette development presented previously.
The question is, Evan, whereabouts in the Rosette subdivision?
It would
Near
be
Highway-
in the southeast corner at the parklands.
Okay,
It's in the Parkland area. Mr. Mayor.
so the southeast corner would be down College and George Street on the railway line.
But at the right of way internal to the Rosette development. So
Yep.
Kristen, if you could. I don't recall what that street is.
Yeah, a picture or drawing or something that gives us an idea.
See if Sheila can bring that up. Can you bring up the Rosette? Just give us a second, Evan. We're bringing it up on screen. There's a question on the pumping station. How much noise would that be? Might be a question to Carl. I'm not aware. I have very limited engineering qualifications, but I have seen a few of those and they're usually in the ground. So you wouldn't hear any, I don't think you would hear any noise, even if you were close by it. There's the concept plan.
Correct. So the southeast end where Street A does the 90-degree turn by block 11. Somewhere in that area is sort of the proposed location at this time.
Yeah.
Obviously, these processes, subject to change at this point, but that's, from a engineering perspective, that's about the ideal location.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Evan. Stay online, you may have some more questions.
He's our engineer expert.
Okay. We're still in the. Exactly, and that's why I was just saying, if we could get back to that second part, I think Crystal wants to answer that. Kristen.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Likely there'll be two-story
Jim,
townhouses, very similar, just it's more economy
excuse me,
based.
can we have one meeting going on at a time? Jim? Ron, just if you want to have a personal discussion, I'll ask you to go out through the doors or sit here where we can have the communication. Thank you. Kristen?
Both developments are proposing two-story townhouses. Not likely basements. Potentially, yes, there's some water.
Please, if we're going to be asking questions, I got to get you to come to participate on the microphone. But there was a question asked, will it be on slab? And I understand that's.
I don't actually know the answer, but I don't believe so. In terms of bedroom numbers, I don't know. It could be four bedrooms. It depends. There's different models. There's end units. They're bigger. So it'll be a variety of different floor plans.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I can see hands up. Yeah, Mr. Alexander.
I'll try not to swear.
I'll try to hold you to that.
I'm elated, first and foremost, that I did see.
Your name is?
Oh, sorry, Trevor Alexander,
Yes.
former resident. I was elated to see that there was a picture of the dam in the pond back here to the north. But I was a little disturbed about the deterioration part. What happens here when things all get going and the dam washes out? Where's the water going to go? And downhill, I know it goes downhill, but where does it go after that?
I'm going to look towards Becky for an answer to that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you for that question, Trevor. So as part of the county's review, we will be reviewing the environmental impact study as well as the stormwater management plans that were done. And that is a question I think that we will certainly be asking because the EIS in particular did note the deterioration of that dam wall. So that is something that is on our radar. Again, we do have planning ecologists who will be reviewing some of those studies from within the county. So I'll make sure that that is on their radar for a review as well.
Okay, thank you. If in the event things are a go and 10 years from now we have water of biblical proportions and it washes out, what happens then?
Yeah, so again, I'm also not an engineer, so I can't exactly speak to how the dam should be upgraded, if at all. I know that there have been fish that have been flagged as inhabiting the pond, and I believe that the environmental impact study had also suggested that the Department of Fisheries and Oceans should be involved because they are proposing to amend where that stream is flowing to accommodate the development. So I know that there will certainly be various levels of checks and balances if further work is done and required for that dam.
One more question, I'm done. A lot talked about water. What about the sewers? For this proposed one here to the north?
Carl?
Yes, through your worship, the lift station we're talking about is for the sewers. And would be, once it would be gravity drain into the lift station, and then it would be pumped up and back into the system, and then it would flow down to the stormwater or the sanitary management over by the arena. Water is a little bit easier. It's pressurized, so it doesn't have to be pumped anywhere. So it's a little bit easier to get there. So the water really isn't overly a concern. It's more the sanitary that we have more issues with.
I guess I should have clarified. On Durham Road, there's no sewers that go by, like my mom still lives, it doesn't go by the house. is there a chance that this proposed subdivision link up with sewers to service the people of Durham Road West?
That's not a part of the, sorry, through your worship, that's not a part of the proposal at this point, but it is something that, could be discussed with the developer, could be somehow tied in, depending on how far away. I apologize, I don't know where your mother lives. So second house down the road. So yeah, it's something that we could definitely look at. There is some other development in the area that's being proposed as well. So there's a few options there to possibly look at tying some of those houses in. Yeah.
Further, sir?
Ralph DeSanto. Proposed timelines for either or of these two subdivisions? Ballpark?
Who wants to take that one? Because I don't.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll probably have different timelines. Obviously, we're working through this now to get things moving, and once the applications hopefully have been approved, then they're ready to go.
Anything further, Carl?
Yes, through your worship, that's a very good question. And yeah, everybody has different timelines. Part of the application for this one and the subdivision to the south is the issue of water and sewer capacity in our existing system. Currently, for both of these proposals, we don't currently have any capacity for these system or for these two subdivisions in our system the way it sits today. We are working with staff to upgrade some systems which are looking good and are favorable. So we are looking at increasing some small capacity in the very near future. And then we are working on a 5-year plan for increasing a large amount of capacity. So there are some options depending on timing and phasing of the subdivisions and those subdivisions, as well as other subdivisions in the municipality when they come online. So it's just at this point, it's all a negotiation and how things will move forward and timing and things like that. It's a good non-answer. Sorry.
Becky?
Yeah, so just to add what Carl's saying, like something that we may discuss with the applicants, those studies are being peer reviewed, so those numbers are going to be confirmed in terms of what capacity exists for that sewer and water servicing. But as Carl mentioned, that phasing might be something that we could look at. For example, is it possible to build one road and a few blocks of townhouses, in the nearer future for possibly both properties. And then in future, once that servicing capacity is up to speed, we could look at a more fulsome development in its entirety. So there's a few options to work with, but yes, ultimately, I think it will depend what those final numbers look like.
Okay. Any other questions? Marion?
Marion Ratcliffe for the record. I sent basically the same email about lighting concerns to both of those projects. In the first one, I talked about street lights. This time I'll just mention about lighting on the homes, that they avoid carriage lights, wall pack lights, and extraneous soffit lights. If nothing else, getting rid of the soffit lights reduces light pollution and also reduces the cost of construction and the cost of operation for the homeowner, making for a more affordable home. So we'd like to see that as well. There's no real need for soffit lights. And I have one question off of that, and that is, I noticed in the project, there's only one road in. We've got 132 units. You got to figure 2 cars per unit. And then how many people are living there, emergency access, et cetera, with only one road in. Is there a safety concern only having the one access for that many homes?
I'm looking towards Becky on that part of it from the planning perspective. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a great question. It's a question that we've also been asking. And it's something that we largely rely again on the Conservation Authority to respond to. So that's a high thing on their radar, is looking at that natural hazard component. And, if the event that there was a significant flood or there was a fire that blocked the road, how do you access those units if there's only one right of way? This is a bit of a difficult site because of that hazard land constraint that's around it. There is one sort of potential roadway that has been left to the west of the development for any future development expansion at some point in future. But yes, it is still a question that we are working on, that safe access piece.
Just for clarification, was that the east or the west where there might be an?
It was the west. We had discussed having an access point to the east. And the applicant, through their environmental impact consultant, their ecologist, had confirmed that it would be difficult to have an access point to the east just because of that water course and the wetlands that were there. It would be quite a cost heavy thing to have, as well as, there would be ecological impacts to that as well.
Okay, I'll take them as answered. I had the same questions about the garbage and the sewer water, but that was, or not set, but the stormwater, and that was discussed in the first. So back to do the light test before and after, sky quality and peripheral testing, and make sure that we aren't trespassing into the environment or our neighbors. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else? That's it for, nobody's online, Sheila. I'll declare the public meeting closed at 3:24. And if the board doesn't mind, we'll take a slight recess. I think the number of people are going to get up and get out of here. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll call this public meeting open. And this one is concerning zoning amendment ZA 25-2023-634016 Artemisia Glenelg Town Line. Meeting is open at 3:31. Very good. And Sheila, if you can, anybody that's online, give us a update on them. No, you've got to give her the microphone, Carl.
Through you, Mayor Eccles. For members of the public waiting to participate in this portion of the meeting, you may do so in one of two ways. The first being if you have joined us via phone line, you can press *9 to raise your hand and that will let us know that you would like to speak. If you've joined us using the Zoom meeting software, you can also raise your hand to participate, usually located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen with a blue or yellow hand icon.
Thank you, Sheila. And just a few announcements for myself. I would like to remind everyone that the purpose of this public meeting is to receive input from the public. Every person who attends a statutory public meeting required under the Planning Act shall be given an opportunity to make representation in respect to the proposed bylaw. All submission materials for this application are available at the West Grey Municipal Office during regular business hours. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the municipality of West Grey to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grey before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grey before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Thank you. And Mr. Clerk, Jamie, your comments.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Notice of this public meeting was circulated to the prescribed bodies, posted on the subject property and mailed to all properties within 120 meters of the subject property on August 28, 2023. The comments that were received before the publishing of the agenda have been attached to the agenda. Anyone wishing to provide verbal comments at this public meeting is asked to sign the sign-in sheet located on the speaker's table. The personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and the Municipal Act. The information collected will be used to complete the zoning bylaw amendment process and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to me, the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the corporation of the municipality of West Grey on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the municipality of West Grey, care of the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk.
Thank you very much, Jamie. And report, is there anything further, Carl, from the planning department? Or do we have Mary online?
No, you get me today, Your Worship. So this application, yeah, there's a PowerPoint. Yes, thank you. So there's a location of 63416 Artemisia Glenelg Town Line. So the purpose of this application is to change the zone symbol on the subject lands from A2 rural, M3 rural industrial, and any natural to A2 rural, A2 495 or 4, sorry, A2 494 rural with exception, and any natural environment. The effect of the application will permit a business, and the business is to produce steel cladding for industrial and agricultural buildings, roofing and siding. So as you can see by the map, it's a large rural parcel. Next page. That one's in there twice. So this is a proposed zoning map. So you can see the area that is proposed as A2 494 off of the Artemisia Glenelg Town Line, and the balance of the property would be A2 with the NNE for natural environment. So just a small area on the southeast corner there. And that's all I have. I will take any questions.
So we don't have anybody here from the applicant. Thank you. And so I will open that up to comments from the public. And Sheila, I'll look to you first. No one online? And anybody in the audience today? Ms. Ratcliffe?
Marion Ratcliffe for the record. I did send in written comments. I'll just highlight that my experience with rural businesses is they seem to think more light is better, and that's not always the case. In fact, often it's not. That they should be advised against the use of excessive lighting, wall pack lighting, keeping in mind where that is. You're going to have people driving by who have night adjusted eyes. And if they're catching glare from building lights, that's going to decrease their night vision. And that could potentially put them in a dangerous situation farther down the road before their eyes have had the opportunity to readjust. Again, it's a very rural, natural area. And again, no one needs the lights. The neighbors don't need the lights. The environment doesn't need any excessive lighting. So if they could be guided to keep their lighting on the property and to test before and after, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments on this? Take that under consideration. And if there is no other comments, sorry, Councillor, anybody from the council? Councillor Hutchison, Doug too.
I just want to make a note that we received an email just previous to this meeting from the applicant, I believe, Solomon Martin, and explaining some questions that one of the neighbors had. And I thought it was a very good email. It did clear up a lot of questions about extra traffic and what they were actually using this building for and so on. So that's in our email, and I'm not sure if the clerk wants to share that, but it does clarify quite a few questions that at least one of the local neighbors had.
Jamie?
Through you, Mayor Eccles, yes, I can read that out if you'd like. I will note that it'll also be republished following the meeting with the agenda, so I'll defer to you as to whether or not you want them read now. Sure. So I'll just go through each of the questions and then provide the response that was provided. So the comment is, we are in receipt of the proposed rezoning at concession 4 at the Artemisia Glenelg Town Line. We are a neighbor and would appreciate more information. What does this zoning challenge allow? What does this steel cladding manufacture entail? Will the residents be building new structures? If so, how extensive and when? And the response was, the owner wants to build a new house, barn, and small scale shop on this property to support a family farm and will be minor in nature. Next question was, will this work be performed by residents or will there also be workers coming to this factory? The response was, this shop will be managed by the resident living there with maybe a couple employees. Next question was, when will this manufacturing begin? And the response was, the business would start sometime in 2024. Next question was, what materials will be used? And the response was, this is a roll forming process that roll forms metal siding and roofing for barns and sheds. The next question was, is it for sheet metal or smaller parts? And the response was, produces roll form steel. There will be no noise from roll forming and no negative impact expected. Next question was, how and when and how often will materials be delivered to the site and finished materials shipped? And the response was, this is hard to answer because it just depends on business, but will not make a noticeable change in traffic to the existing area. Next question, what are these materials? Metal clad, the response was metal clad flat stock comes in and roll form steel is the finished product. Question is, are they environmentally safe? Response is yes. Question is the process environmentally safe? Again, the answer is yes. Next question is, how noisy will the process be and when during the day will it occur? And the response was, the owners will not hear anything from their property and or any surrounding property owners. Next question was, what controls are in place here? The response was, MOE approval for air and noise will be done. Next question, what exactly is the process? Response, roll forming steel for agricultural buildings mainly. And next question was roll bonding, explosive bonding, laser cladding, hot dip galvanizing. all have potentially serious side effects. Response was none of these whatsoever. And that was the end of the questions and responses.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions from any of the members? Seeing none, then I'll declare this public meeting over at 3:41. Okay. And our last one today, we'll correct in that. Zoning bylaw amendment ZA 28-2023, right. So we'll declare this meeting open at 3:41. And some of the administrative announcements that I have to make from the chair. But before I do that, Sheila, do you have anybody or give update for the online participation, please?
Through you, Mayor Eccles. For members of the public waiting to participate in this portion of the meeting, you may do so in one of two ways. The first being if you have joined us via phone line, you can press *9 to raise your hand, and that will let us know that you would like to speak. If you have joined us using the Zoom meeting software, you can also raise your hand to participate, usually located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen with a blue or yellow hand icon.
Thank you, Sheila. My announcements from the chair. I would like to remind everyone that the purpose of this public meeting is to receive input from the public. Every person who attends a statutory public meeting required under the Planning Act shall be given an opportunity to make representation in respect of the proposed bylaw. All submission materials for this application are available at the West Grey Municipal Office during regular business hours. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the municipality of West Grey to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grey before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of West Grey before the zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body may not be added as party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Comments and notice from the clerk. Jamie.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Notice of this public meeting was circulated to the prescribed bodies, posted on the subject property, and mailed to all properties within 120 meters of the subject property on August 25th, 2023. The comments that were received before the publishing of the agenda have been attached to the agenda. Anyone wishing to provide verbal comments at this public meeting is asked to sign the sign-in sheet located on the speaker's table. The personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and the Municipal Act. The information collected will be used to complete the zoning bylaw amendment process and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to me, the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Municipality of West Grey and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the Municipality of West Grey, care of the Director of Legislative Services / Clerk.
Thank you, Jamie. And now we'll hear anything from the Planning and Development Department. Carl.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So this application, ZA 2023 for Blair and Miranda Wright. It's located at 142347 Gray Road 9. The purpose of the application is to change the zone symbol on the subject lands from A1 agricultural, A2 rural, and any natural environment to A1 agricultural, A1 494 agricultural with an exception, and A2 rural and NE natural environment. The effect of the application is to permit a second detached dwelling unit on this property subject to specific conditions. Next page. So property there, you can see it's a large residential property or agricultural property. That's the OP, and then there's a zoning bylaw. This is currently zoned A1 in natural environment. So the next page. So the zoning map there, we'll see in the southern portion of the property, away from the any section, is the current farm cluster. There's the housing and existing house, citizen dwelling, and barns and sheds are all within that area. And the second dwelling would have to be within that area as well, within that A1 495 area. That's all I have. Any questions?
Okay. At this time, then, I will open it up to the applicant. Any? Well, you have to speak, but you have to speak into that microphone.
Yeah, Mandy, right? The only concern that I had when I received the paper was where the arrow said for the house, but Carl explained that it's, as long as it's within that dotted line, we're good to go. It's just where she's got it marked. It's kind of on our septic system. So I want to move it over just a little bit.
And yeah, your concern, and it's not specific to that, it's where it would fit into that. Yeah, good. Okay. Any other questions or comments? And anybody online? Sheila? Still none? Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Hutchison, go to.
Yeah, so the question was sort of answered in your response, and you said that you're sharing septic system. What about the well? You're not sharing your septic system. So one of the original criteria was within that envelope that you were to share services, right? But there's always some exception. So I was just curious whether you said you're sharing water, but not septic. Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. That was the proposal. Any further questions? And no further questions and nobody else online, I will declare the meeting closed at 3:47. Thank you very much. I believe that's all on the agenda. So we've completed all the business on the agenda for this public meeting. And then I will declare the meeting adjourned at 3:48. Thank you, everybody, for your participation.